Committee for November the 24th.
I just drove past.
We are on list to order. And do I have a motion to approve the minutes of September 10th?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so now we're gonna have a discussion regarding industrial district uses.
All right, so just as a refresher from last time, I brought you some of the same printed material. I figured you might need an additional hard copy for this meeting. But last time we talked in general what the different letters in the use table mean. So the different categories of permissivity that you have across the different use types. So we covered those. We also provided you with all the definitions that apply to any of the uses that are identified in any of the three different industrial districts that we have. And then we really concluded by, well, what would you all like us to look at? What would be the scope of a project going forward or an amendment going forward? And we talked a little bit about adding trade services possibly as a use to general commercial. And then Debbie, you had asked us for some maps on vacant school property, so property owned by any of the school districts in the county that are not currently developed. So that's what this map is here. So I believe you wanted to take a look at what some of the zoning is around some of those probable future school sites as part of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And then Andy, you provided an email with some additional uses that you had suggested could be added to ID. So that's kind of the scope of the conversation to this point. So happy to take in any direction that you all would like to. Just looking for some sort of direction in terms of any possible amendments. The one thing I will say, Mitch couldn't be here tonight, he's on his way back home, but for adding uses to ID, all of those are reasonable uses to add to ID, I think. The one drawback to adding uses that are relatively easy to start up and place into an ID district is it gobbles up that land and it's no longer available for kind of the manufacturing uses, the jobs producing uses. And as we all know, it's very hard to create new industrial property to rezone from some other district to industrial. That's just kind of an uphill battle for a lot of folks. So that's just one thing to keep in mind.
So, you want to start there?
Yeah, so, well, my concern with that, and to play, I guess, the other side of that, is that if somebody owns an ID property and wants to do one of those types of uses, then we end up going into it and rezoning it and losing it anyway. At least as long as it stays in ID, there is a future potential for it still, but once it gets rezoned out of that, I've talked to a resident just recently, they've got ID property, they want to rezone it. I don't want to lose the ID, but you know, all they want to do is put some parking on it for, you know, just while they own it for a retirement type thing. And you know, any of those are kind of that. They're allowed just about everywhere else. They're fairly less intensive as a construction-wise thing, so somebody else could, you know, it's easy for them to keep it up. But if a future use, larger facility wanted to come in and take it over, build on it, you're not really losing like a warehouse or losing anything major on it. These are usually just small outdoor uses for them.
Okay, so when they come to the planning department, such as,
Right.
Is it more costly for them to get a permit? Or how does that work? Like you would not think that parking areas would be an industrial. I mean, I wouldn't think of that as industrial.
Right.
What normally would that be?
It's allowed in, I think, most of the non-residential districts.
Because
Are you talking about
that's
parking
the
area or
special
yeah,
exception.
parking
I think
storage?
we would look at.
Well, yeah, those would be two
I think
separate
that,
things.
I think that especially a trucking operation, I believe I know which one you're talking about, Andy, off Campbell
Oh,
Road.
trucking.
That's a trucking operation technically, is what we
So it's not
classify
just
those
a parking
Currently.
space.
Yeah, well, no, it would be, because I believe he's wanting to like, let truckers store their vehicles there and stuff.
I would thought it was just gonna be just parking, just regular storage.
Okay,
But, but it's tied to all that other industrial in that area, and I'd hate to zone it, downzone it,
yeah.
when it could have a future use that would be, complementary to the rest of the area.
Yeah, so
But I
there
can
is
see
some
that
nuance.
anyway, so, like with vehicle, parking areas, I mean, you wouldn't really want like semi-trucks parked in general commercial or those other places. I would rather them be in industrial, even though it's losing the higher, intensity uses.
Okay, so the things that you added there,
Mhm.
the building material and supply store, farm and garden, are those things currently in another, use?
Another district, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would that be?
It's gonna be,
More- I would think it would be more like the, area.
yeah, some of them, like, it's gonna depend on each one. So building and material and supply store, I believe that's allowed in GC. Most of these are commercial types of uses. Yeah, parking areas. But generally, they're gonna be in the commercial district. They might be allowed in, certainly farm and garden supply is allowed in AGC.
They're allowed in the light industrial zoning, so I figure, if they can go into a light industrial, why couldn't it be in a,
Well, so
Industrial.
what's the pros and cons of putting these in industrial and taking them out of like GC or?
no, not take them out, just adding it as into that additional use.
Right, so
okay.
that's
So basically, so it
Okay,
wouldn't
yeah.
have to be rezoned if they wanted to.
Yeah,
Right.
so you're not really taking anything out?
No, we're not taking anything, we're just
Okay.
purely
Gotcha.
adding to that last. I
Mhm.
mean, they're allowed in almost all the other zonings, it's just allowing a very light use and a heavy use.
Okay. Do you see a problem with that?
It's really
Potentially.
the pro-con conversation that we started out with, that you might be having industrial land that's being used for lighter purposes, where it'd be more fitting to have the more intensive uses on it. But Andy's point is a good one too, that, if it is a less intense use on an ID property, at least it can go away easier and the district remains. So, the challenge of rezoning to ID property when you do have that big job creator come in, that's still gonna be there, but I can have to rezone.
Well, how do y'all handle now, say you got heavy industrial and they have their own maintenance truck shops and all? Do they have to, are they able to do that if repair shop isn't allowed? How do y'all treat a situation like that? They got their company or whatever, but they also have, they repair all their own trucks, everything.
That would be an accessory use.
That's an accessory.
Yeah, so you've got a principal use, which needs to appear on the table in the correct district, and then activities that are supportive of that principal use would be considered accessory. So exactly like you're saying, a repair of heavy equipment that they're otherwise using on their industrial site.
Well, I'm gonna say one more thing about this. I just don't want us to get in trouble. Okay, so right now, those areas are not in ID, right?
Those uses, correct.
Okay, you've got them in, they're in what, GC, you said some of them were in GC, and so you have a person, let's say it was your person on the parking, but all around them is GC, not any industrial. But then this guy, he's like, okay, we said he could be industrial, so he wants to be industrial. How's that gonna work?
Well, if you change the use table, it doesn't change anybody's zoning district. So if he's
But I'm
already,
saying, are the people around him gonna be upset and think that potentially there could be more there than what they bargained for?
well, that would already be the case if the property is already zoned ID, right? So, what Andy's talking about is adding, more and less intensive uses that are not available now on ID property, so that they could pursue those if they wanted to.
But they're less intensive possibly with all the other less intensive things around them.
I think this is, let me see if this is what you're saying. I think you're talking about moving to ID, so we would count on the planning department to guide the prospective person, company, into the zoning that would complement the surrounding zoning. So he may look and say, yeah, I want an ID on his property when everything around it's not.
Right.
And then planning would go, well, you really should do this zoning because it's gonna be easier to get past and it will still meet the requirements that you want. So it's not gonna,
So you're not
shouldn't
just
drive more
gonna
people.
say, okay, well, you can go in.
Yeah, but Andy's exactly right. So when someone comes forward and they want to rezone property, they might just pick whatever the first thing, first district on this table they see allows what they want to do, but that might not be the best one for the property. So if they're outside of the urban services boundary, maybe the most appropriate district is rural industrial. Maybe, like your example, is a bunch of general commercial around them, and in that case, general commercial is the best suitable district. So, yeah, when it comes to rezoning, you always want to have something that matches the comp plan and matches the character of the existing
Right.
area.
But in my thinking, though, if that's just a list of things, generally that would be less evasive in the industrial than the industrial.
Well, here's your problem.
What problem?
I'm saying, here is a problem. I'm gonna tell you what the problem is.
What?
Is if you put them in ID, we all know that then they're free reign. They can do whatever they want to do.
This is for
It
existing
happens.
zoning, though. These are already ID zoned
Yeah.
properties. That's where I was saying earlier, when we're going through the
Yeah, but not
rezoning.
all of that right there is ID.
Right, but this would go onto a property that's already ID, not to rezone an ID to do one of these things. Does that make sense?
It would still stay whatever, zone it is, right? So this would only impact.
It makes me nervous, but whatever. Okay, so what else do y'all want to talk about? Modifying the use table? What are your suggestions?
Well, we're
Anything?
really looking for, this was
Oh,
referred
okay. I
by
just
you all
didn't know
in
if
the
you
meeting, we're
guys
looking
had
for
something.
direction, yeah.
Well, sometimes you bring to us things that you've had a lot of issues with.
Right.
And so I didn't know if you,
I'll say one thing that I think would help is, with the definitions, sometimes there's a lack of clarity. And then it really would help if everyone was operating on the same sheet of music, for the definitions, both for, prospective companies coming in, for the community members, for staff trying to, figure out and interpret what it is. So, if you look in the definitions here, like for example, there's only a few of them, but there are a couple of good examples. Maybe I'll pull out the best one. So they're in alphabetical order. So if you go into the page with the where the N's start, I guess there's only one N. So
The
it's N, letter N. So there's a non-metallic mineral product manufacturer. Right. Yeah. So like, what the heck is that, right? But there's some specific definitions that are derived from the NAICS codes and North American Industry Classification System. So those numbers in there are very specific, and they tell you exactly, this is what this type of industry makes. That's the product that they make. So that's probably the best example in the code of making it abundantly clear to the company, to staff, to the community of what that use is. So there's no ambiguity about it. So doing more of that to the definitions, I think, would be helpful to everybody.
Would it, Go ahead.
No.
I was gonna say, would it, so I know that, you end up with the same, you can end up with the same problem when you start getting specific. Do you have a method to make sure that we don't end up with an inclusive list that, and then there's some, as long as some grayish type areas can still fit in there?
Yeah, the code is structured so that, the NAICS system is built on sectors and subsectors, and then it gets really nitty-gritty down to 6-digit numbers. And the subsectors are the 3-digit numbers, and those are very broad buckets, and they're almost word for word exactly the title of the definition in our code, and the full written definition itself is basically verbatim from NAICS. So that's vague enough and it's broad enough that a lot of those things fall into those broader buckets. And then just a couple of definitions up from that one, there's a miscellaneous manufacturing, that anything that isn't identified in the code as a specific type of manufacturing would be defined as miscellaneous. And that has
So
a
have we
higher
always
degree.
had that wording in here about the next code? Have we always had that wording in here, or is that something that we're just now putting in there?
So.
Because I thought we didn't have.
So the NAICS codes, I think, were first introduced with this definition here, the non-metallic, and that was, I think, 2017,
I was gonna say
2018.
16 or 17, I believe.
So it's been a minute. And a lot of the definitions were just carried over verbatim from when the code was updated in 2022. So not a lot of the definitions
So
have
from
changed.
2022, we had the next code in.
Yeah, so they were in a couple of these definitions. And
Trade services is one of them.
right, exactly. Trade services, construction services is another. There's a few of them in here, and they are very helpful. And really, it's the manufacturing stuff, because, excuse me, people can make so many different types of widgets, right? And it's impossible to have 4,000 definitions of, well, we make rubber duckies, and we make this. You're not gonna put all that in your zoning code, so you want to put it in broad categories. So you make rubber duckies, you're plastics manufacturing. Right, so identifying what those subsectors is cuts down on the ambiguity and trouble that folks have. And the good news is it wouldn't be an actual change, it'd be a clarification.
I'm always in support of having more detailed information, as long as we don't get ourselves caught in a box.
And, the helpful part about having the miscellaneous manufacturing is it captures everything that isn't otherwise captured, and it's like a higher level of approval because it requires a special exception.
Right.
So if the code doesn't contemplate what it is, then it's gotta go to the BZA and they gotta approve it.
Now, I saw that it was, miscellaneous was only for, I think, ID.
Yeah.
What if it's some random thing that would actually fit in one of the other zoning classes? Could we have it as a special exception in
Right now, you
other
can't.
classes?
So right now you can't,
Right.
because the code is written that anything that's not defined is not allowed.
Yeah.
But, that provision itself could be changed by council if you'd like, or whenever a use comes up that is novel, it doesn't happen all the time, but technology does advance, things change. You could always add a new defined use to the code.
I mean, I have no examples, and I can't
Right.
think of anything offhand, but I'm just saying, that is a
Well,
very
have you ever
specific
used that?
thing.
In the
Or-
past,
No,
miscellaneous.
you could have miscellaneous as a special exception to some of the other industrial zone districts as well.
Right, you could allow that, you could add that use type to other districts.
Okay.
Yeah, if you wanted to, just the downside is you might have something that's more intensive, that's miscellaneous, but could be allowed in light industrial. if you want.
Well, that's why we would have to, the special exception, we would have to look at what are you really doing and how does that comply with either ID or LI or RI or something.
Because right now, the code is structured very conservatively on uses.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, you got a thought?
Well, I know East York Industrial Park out there near us. Still got a lot of land that's opened and they hadn't had any takers, you know, a lot of those businesses have done transferred from one thing to another thing. Several. And I promise you, I'd rather have a building or a farm and garden store right there beside it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, anything else before we get into schools?
I guess the other one would be, the trade, we definitely need to do something with trade services.
Oh, yeah.
Cause, you know, we're having to, I really don't like trying to rezone to the industrial zonings to get some of these smaller things. We've had a lot of those in the last 8 months,
Mhm.
10 months.
Why are you looking at me? Tommy's staring at me.
He likes
You know what I told you the other day?
Okay.
So,
like your local plumber, your local electrician, why does he have to have his building sitting in a LI zoning, which is already, you know, almost impossible to get to, when he could be in a GC or something like that, when he's just got his metal building sitting out there and he parks his trucks in the yard,
well, yeah.
things like that.
What do you think?
I never had no problem whenever he was able to work out the back of his house.
Well,
And I tell you something else, we rode by one the other day, I don't have a problem with people having gravel parking lots neither.
I like gravel parking lots.
That's what I say, I ain't got no,
For places that don't get a lot of traffic.
one of the best ways to stay in business, be able to afford to be in business.
So you're just saying to add trade services to GC?
Yeah, or another lesser zoning that, I mean, if GC would cover the vast majority of them, I don't, like y'all said, I don't wanna get out of control with it and get crazy, but I would like to allow it in some places that it would be easier to get zoning or find property that's already zoned for.
Yeah.
You know, I think
Well-
about it's now a
Yeah, I
fence
think that
company.
is, I think that's
Yeah.
Over there in
appropriate.
Newport.
Because, see, I, like, when they started doing the multi-use, like, say, Riverwalk and doing, I don't do it like that. I don't know how that really come to be, I mean, I get it, the idea that people don't have to get in their car and go nowhere, they can walk and, but it's just something different, I guess.
Progress.
So on
That's
trades,
great.
on trade services, I just wanna make sure planning's got the feedback they need. Do y'all want them to bring something back for y'all to see, or what's the go-do for planning?
I think at the tail end of this conversation, maybe a vote or a series of votes
Right.
of direction that you would like us to do with, you know, adding trade services to general commercial. Maybe one.
I mean, is there anything, any other zonings that you can think of that it would really help to be in?
No, because right now it's in RI, LI, and ID, and UD, and really GC is the only appropriate district left.
Right.
Mhm. Okay.
Well, could that potentially help us not to have to put more land in industrial?
Well, it's all context-based and project-based, so if someone is coming forward and they wanna, you know, start an exterminator business or something like that, and, you know, they're looking at different property around the county about where they might set up shop or take a lease on a building, an existing building, right now, they're limited to RI, LI, and ID. By virtue of this change, they could also look at GC property. So some folks, they look for what's by right, and other folks don't mind going through the rezoning process.
Right. So what I would use as an example of what we had and where we're at is the Newport area. You know, on the west side of Walmart, we have Comfort Systems, we had the old pest control, which is now a fence place. I think there's something else over there. They got the yard.
Landscaping,
yard. You know, if today, if all those were there, they would have to all be industrial zoned to be right there. I wouldn't particularly want that area as an industrial zone, but as its current general commercial GC,
Right.
it fits, which is, I think, what it is. That's all GC is. There's not industrial right there, is it? You know, right off the
Check
top.
real quick now.
So,
I don't remember seeing that as a blob of industrial.
but like in that example, that would be where we get into this here, and we keep saying non-conforming.
Well, when you're adding uses to districts, you wouldn't be creating any nonconformities.
No, but I'm saying, like he said, those businesses he named off now would be considered, even though they've been there a long time, to being out of the
Right.
usage.
Yeah, if the description of the use and the district
Yeah.
is right, yeah.
All right.
Anything else?
No, y'all wanna make some votes on these?
Did you want to talk about the school?
Oh, is the school part of this one?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I thought it was
Okay.
separate.
So here's the lowdown. What we're looking at
Paper stapled on the wrong side.
here.
So, yeah, these are all the properties that are vacant and owned by any of the school districts. So, obviously, the intent at some point would be to either sell it to somebody else who could build a school or a couple of schools on these properties. So you'll see at the bottom, we've got listed which school district owns it. So I think you were looking for what the existing zoning districts were
If
for
there's
context around
issues,
that.
yeah. Because I'm assuming that a lot of these properties, the schools have owned for quite a while.
I don't have any dates of ownership, but I imagine.
Fort Mill usually
Yeah, they do get
has
it ahead
theirs
of it, yeah.
quite far in advance. I mean, do you see, when you were doing this, do you see any issues that are glaring problems?
I mean, what would be an issue? You're looking for incompatible districts adjacent to each other? No, there is LI, across from, that's where the,
That's where the middle school.
yeah, so if you look at the York School District number 1, they've got property on Old York Road, that's where the new middle school is, commencing construction, I think, this week. There's LI across the street, but it's across from Old York Road, so not fairly separated there.
I know one thing, whenever you talk about these schools and all, for the life of me, I don't understand why we put them on heavy use roads. That's what gets me. Bypasses and heavy traveled roads.
So we put them on side roads and people hated that too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that may be so, but
That used to be the model, and one I think is still a good one, is putting them in neighborhoods so people walk to school.
well, I know I told Buddy Monday Dave that deals with schools, I said, we come through Rock Hill down there, and does a school bus go to a Rock Hill school? Because the traffic was backed up picking up youngins. I think every parent in the world must pick their youngins up now and don't ride a school bus.
Right on that, right around it.
Yeah,
So those are the only two I saw.
yeah, that's the one. Okay.
But it's not, you know, ID right there, but I think that's the substation. And it ain't likely to be changed in anything ever.
No, no. I do know, I've heard that there's gonna be some legislation looked at that would help the situation. So, we'll see what happens at the state level in the future. Would it behoove us to go to give this information to the school district to show them what potentially could be around a school?
I think they probably are generally aware already, but it doesn't hurt to share the information, certainly.
I don't know. I don't know if they're aware of it or not, but I would like for them to be.
And I meet with the superintendents occasionally, I'm happy to share this information, if it would be helpful.
You got a personal relationship with each one of them, don't you?
I do, yeah, yeah, no,
After all that we've
I
been through.
appreciate each of them, actually, they're all great, I think we got
Yes.
great superintendents, and I know we got a couple new ones as well, but I've met with them as
Yeah,
well,
that's
so.
true,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yep,
especially.
but happy to, especially the new folks, be good to share this
Yeah,
with, so.
yeah, okay. Well, I would feel comfortable with that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, well, there's that. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, do we need to make a motion on anything here?
Please. So anything that you thought was worthy of us going into the documents and coming back to you all with the text amendment for, if you could please make that in the form of a motion.
Okay. You want, 3 different ones, or however many to cover each individual
However
thing?
many you think is appropriate or easy enough to make this.
So I guess, I make a motion to add trade services to GC zoning.
Mhm.
Second? Second?
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that's one, okay.
And just to be clear, as a permitted use, right?
Yes, yes.
And what else?
Then the, you know, what do y'all think about the NACE codes for the definitions? Revising all of that, it's not written up there. Well, yeah, it is, modifying the use definitions. Y'all interested in that? I think it'd be helpful.
When you do that, when you start working on that, that's a task. That's a pretty good task, I would think.
It's actually a lot easier than you would think because, like I mentioned, you know, the manufacturing uses, they come directly from NAICS. So it's just a matter of linking them up and adding the
Well,
right
have we
numbers.
voted that we can use the next, I thought that we couldn't use next in our,
They're already in the code.
okay.
It would just be applying them to more definitions.
I think that might be a problem, but, so we can take a look at it, whatever you say, and then vote on it then. But, sometimes you go to other counties and get examples. Is that something that you would do?
Sure.
Okay. I'd like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So I make a motion to, to evaluate adding the NACE codes.
No. I don't think that we need to add. You said that whatever was in here was very clear.
Yeah, we would just be looking to add the NAICS numbers to more of the definitions, because they're on some, they're not on all of them.
Applying.
Right, so a solid waste transfer station would get a number with it, right? Generally,
Yeah.
Or
Maybe just the manufacturing.
It's primarily beneficial to
Well, let's look.
industrial, but if we, industrial type of uses like manufacturing. Now, there are some counties, probably very few, but there are some that use a NAICS code for literally everything in there. And we might not need to go that far, because you probably don't need a NAICS code for a single family home and all those kinds of things. So it's really meant to help the stuff
Well,
that's a little ambiguous.
Let me ask you this. Does it make the code more restrictive?
No. It'll be clarifying for everyone's sake, what exactly this use
Okay,
is.
the next code as it stands, do you know, like, do we know, have we done a study in the appropriate uses in our, definitions?
So that's a second stage that you could do, so it's best to define everything to exactly what it is. And then once you have a really strong definition that's there's no ambiguity around, no one has misunderstanding about what it is, then you can decide, well, now we know exactly what it is. Is it still appropriate in ID? Is it still appropriate in LI? Is it still appropriate in RI, whatever the categories are?
I'd go for that.
Yeah, I like that better than just going ahead and applying it and everything. I mean, that, I think I've been very clear. I don't want to do that. So,
So y'all are asking staff to go put on paper what it would look like? Is that, you said evaluate, so I want to.
That's what I would.
like
look at it
evaluate
and-
why. I'd like to know why we have to have the next code.
You don't have to, it just helps with clarity. It wouldn't change anything. All it does is clarify. So for example, you know, where you've got the non-metallic mineral product manufacturing, it identifies the NAICS code numbers 3271, 3272. We'd be looking at paper and wood products manufacturing, all the language be the same. It would just say NAICS code, whatever the number is, 32 something.
In other words, it wouldn't give us three different interpretations of how someone could interpret it.
That's right, that's exactly what, so we're all singing on the same sheet of music. That's right.
And without
But why
repeating the
do we
information.
trust them?
It's a federal classification system. That's exactly what it was designed to do, is
I mean,
to,
is it? Okay. I
and
just
again,
have a
it's-
lot of questions
Sure,
about
yeah,
it.
absolutely. And it's not designed to change
So I think
anything.
that we'll just, do, like you said, we'll step our feet into it
Mhm.
and not just go whole hog.
Yep, absolutely.
And let's see what you come up with and why it would be important to add it to whatever you wanna add it to, okay?
Yes, ma'am,
And then I'll do my research on it also.
absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so, well,
Do we have to make a motion
oh,
on that?
yeah, I guess so.
All right.
I don't know how to make that motion.
No.
You don't know how to make it
Just
either.
use the word applicable.
Just,
I'm still not exactly clear on
How about having,
the action.
how about having the staff evaluate those definitions, industrial definitions is what we're talking about, for definitions of uses in industrial districts, where the NAICS code should be applied for clarity.
Yep.
And bring back examples of those modifications to the committee.
Okay, second.
all in favor,
Move on.
whatever they
That's
just
what he
said.
says?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
You
I
adopt
mean,
that
we're not,
motion.
we're
I
not like saying this is gonna happen.
No, we're gonna
Right.
do that.
We just wanna see what you're recommending.
Yes.
So that's Andy's motion,
Yeah.
and you're
No.
second.
And I'll just say, I agree with Jonathan, the NAICS code is very benign. It's like having, if you go to an auto parts store and they look up a code number for the part you're buying, you know, in their system. That's really all it is, it's an identifier.
Okay. Well,
Well,
We're
for
just gonna
anything that gives more clarity.
we're just gonna check it out.
And the feds do a good job with this stuff when they're open.
Okay, all in favor?
All
Uh,
right.
Now,
And then
what about your
the last, yeah.
finally?
All right.
Mhm.
Would that be, what
Oh,
would
do we
be?
make a motion about you going and letting the superintendents, do we do that? Or are you just gonna do that?
No, I'll do that just in
Okay.
terms of my take
Okay,
on
go
this.
ahead.
Yep.
So, to add that, will you try to evaluate it and bring it back to us? Is that what we're asking y'all to do? Or just add it?
Yeah, you can ask for.
Do y'all
a
want to
draft-
just add it, or y'all want them to bring something back, then we?
You can just ask for a draft amendment. I'll show you the new letters in the boxes.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna put, yeah, they're gonna put a little.
I don't know, I don't feel comfortable, but
Just gonna have them bring back a draft amendment?
That'd be fine.
Okay, so I make a motion for, staff to bring back a draft amendment adding, building material and supply store, farm and garden supply with equipment sales and service, vehicle service, repair and customization without overnight outdoor storage, parking areas, motor vehicle, recreational vehicle, or boat storage to ID.
Okay, so you're making the motion.
Yep.
A second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No.
Okay.
I'm just wanting to be on record.
You would rather have a farm garden store beside your house
Well, it's not just
It's
that.
just not clicking in my brain.
I would rather have that in ID than have it in some of the other. So for building materials, I was thinking like Carter lumber or Stock lumber when it used to be over here off of.
I don't see that it has to be an ID, but.
No, it doesn't have to be. It just
Yeah.
can be.
Okay. All
In
right,
other words, it
Next.
would be taking up more industrial space.
That's right.
okay.
I'll go away.
So, discussion regarding golf carts in Baxter Village.
3 packets of information, if you take one, they're carved out.
This. An ordinance, is this an ordinance?
It's a proposed ordinance. Yes, ma'am. I'll get to it here in just a minute. So council member asked that I draft an ordinance mirroring or very similar to the ordinance drafted by TVK, who recently passed a provision allowing for golf carts to be used on the internal road system of TVK. And earlier this year, the state legislature adopted a statute, which is the top page provided to y'all, section 56-2-90, that allowed for local jurisdictions to pass ordinances governing the use of golf carts within certain areas, subdivisions, districts. And here, Baxter has contained plan development that has certain boundaries. There's a map on the last page of that handout that shows roughly the region we're talking about. It may not be the last page, I apologize. The page after the ordinance just shows the geographic region. Before I get to some specifics about that, the state legislature allowed for the operation of golf carts to be operated only during the daylight hours and certain, and I'm reading subsection D of the statute, and to be operated within 4 miles of the address on the registration certificate for the golf cart, and only be operated on secondary roads where the speed limit is 35 miles per hour or less. The county council and municipal councils can modify that by voting to operate golf carts during the daylight hours and nighttime hours. That is what TVK passed. So currently, as drafted, the ordinance has a nighttime operation provision incorporated into the proposed county ordinance. But that really is a question for debate, I would think, for council as a whole, if they wanted to pass this type of legislation, is to really consider when those golf carts should be operated. And on page 2 of the proposed ordinance, was the second page of the handout, I've highlighted that provision that says subsection C, 7.11 subsection C, a permitted golf cart may be operated anytime, day or night, within the jurisdictional boundaries, limits, of Baxter, upon the roadways and streets of the county within Baxter, posted with a speed limit of 35 miles per hour or less on any designated multi-purpose trail. Trails probably aren't a critical use, but the statute does provide for that. The more significant health and safety and issue is the highlighted provision that talks about where do you want these golf carts, if the legislation is passed, to be able to cross roadways. And if you look at the map, you'll see that there are two significant roadways at issue in Baxter. You have Highway 160 west on the northern portion of the development, which golf carts won't be crossing because of the use of those golf carts on the roadways wouldn't be permitted. But I think we would need to have that as an express boundary, perhaps in the legislation to define the limits of use not to cross Highway 160 for a matter of safety. The bigger question becomes, in my opinion, is how would you want or envision the crossing of golf carts on Sutton Road, which intersects Baxter Village for the most part? It's subdivision and old town center crossed by Sutton Road, and I don't recall the speed limit for that, but I presume it's higher than 35 miles per hour. And the state statute allows for us to do that, to allow them to cross, but what is an intersection? I believe there's only one signalized intersection, perhaps more, but one that I'm familiar with that has a light at Sutton Road. Do you want to limit it to those cross points or any other cross roadways that may be further down Sutton Road within the internal boundaries of Baxter? To me, those are the two significant questions for council. Nighttime operation as an option, and are there any limitations on crossing roadways that are in excess of 45 miles per hour, which I think Sutton would be the only one.
I don't know, I thought the blame bicycle was these folks here, they really want to take their life in their own hands.
So, I guess the first question I have is, other than the nighttime use,
Yes, sir.
what's the difference between what the state already allows and this?
Nothing other than the nighttime use does require operational
Right.
headlights and
Yeah.
brake lights.
Are they currently allowed to go across Sutton?
No, there is, well, you
E
know,
says you can.
yeah,
No, not E,
D,
D4.
yes, but so long as it meets the requirements of the
Right.
state registration system,
During the day.
and only during
Right.
the day.
Well, being that I am very well familiar with that area.
Yes, ma'am.
And I have a golf cart, I would not cross Sutton Road in my golf cart.
Mhm.
Now, there's some souped up golf carts that would be okay. I got a little Yamaha, and I put the pedal to the metal, and it still is like, come on, you can do it. I would say a stoplight,
Mhm.
at the stoplight. That's where I would feel comfortable.
Well, Michael, when you said registration, are they gonna have to have a tag or anything?
Yes, sir, there's a
They
decal
gonna have
that through the
Yeah.
state process, you have to apply
Have a little tag.
and you get a tag.
And you have to have
Automatic.
seatbelts if you
That's
have
correct.
children in there under 12 years old.
That's right.
So that's putting seatbelts on your golf
This
cart.
says 35 or less.
Yes, that's why I highlighted it. I thought it was a matter, that's a point
And
of
over here
of
it
issue.
says more.
That's right.
Right, okay.
That's, see, A of subsection C allows the county to develop its own
Right,
ordinance.
yeah.
So I just highlighted that as a consideration.
Okay.
That is all.
And tell me this also, Michael, golf carts, this ain't gonna branch out the side-by-sides too, is it?
We'd have to make sure our definition of golf cart is specific.
'Cause I mean, these side-by-sides, they will outrun the car.
Mhm.
Well, there are some that are allowed.
Really? Versus,
They're,
I know the,
I have a friend that
out in
has
the
one.
country, they'll even bust your tail riding on the highway with.
But if you've got all your proper things and riding on the right roads, you can ride on them,
Yeah,
because they're low-speed vehicles.
but I do think that all of council needs to discuss this.
I would like to apply this to the whole county.
So for purposes of a draft, I'm gonna leave it as written as day or night. And I will amend subsection C, highlighted portion, to limit it to crossing at signalized intersections where the speed limit of the road you're crossing is 35 miles per hour or more.
I don't know about this. I done got behind.
I mean, I saw it, we had somebody cross Highway 49 from River Hills over to CBS Sunday. What are they doing?
Cross that roadway?
I would
49?
never
Yeah.
cross that road.
But they did that at signalized light, so when the light
Well,
turned, they
it
ran
would
on
be
the
a
cross.
signal, yeah. Okay, okay.
There's one additional point.
Yes.
The map is missing, and I don't know why the GIS layer didn't grab when the map was created, but to the south where this Harvest Point Drive crosses New Gray Rock, that is also in Baxter. Baxter goes all the way to the river.
Well, while
So
we're
that's
looking-
another potential crossing point.
While we're looking at
No,
this
There
thing,
are two stoplights, yeah.
while
Two
we're
stoplights
looking
on
at it,
Sutton.
Mhm.
while we're looking at, let's make these bicycles get tags and all too.
I mean,
Cause I'm tired of getting behind 40 of them about burning the clutch out of my big
It's
truck.
state law right there, we're working off the state law. One thing to note too is that's TKK over here, which has passed the law, so that's one likely reason why the folks in Baxter want this, so they can cruise into TKK.
Well, it was requested in River Hills also, but since that's a private neighborhood, I said they needed, I think I reached out.
Well, yeah,
One of
they
y'all-
can go into TKK without crossing a major highway.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but they've gotta be able to maneuver around Baxter at night to get to.
That's right,
TKK.
they can't go out to eat, like right now, they get off work, it's too dark for them to go ride over there. I don't know what it says.
Did they get a ticket for driving drunk on golf cart?
Yep.
All right,
So with those two proposed amendments or changes, if y'all would recommend this out to the full council, put it on an upcoming agenda.
Are we recommending it out for Baxter and then we'll discuss it in full council about going to the full county or?
That's up to y'all, if you wanna have that discussion with full county. It was assigned for Baxter
Right.
here, so I think, in theory, you've been asked to deal with Baxter. You can bring to the full council your desire to apply it to a broader area.
I would like to see it for the whole county.
So what, do you make your motion?
I'm looking at y'all, because I don't want y'all.
I think the issue before the committee is the proposed wording for Baxter.
I think we should stay with Baxter and then move to the county.
I think what you do is you talk with your peers about the broader approach and have that conversation. I think this is something.
Okay. So, do I have to say your revisions or the revisions we're wanting in it?
The revisions as discussed. You
Okay.
can-
I can do that. All right, I make a motion to present the golf carts in Baxter Village draft ordinance to the full council with the modifications as discussed in the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes, sir.
Aye.
Okay, so next is discussion regarding split zoning amendment.
Alrighty, so we did some mapping and some analysis on the back end. So we discovered that there are about 1,144 split zone parcels in York County, which is a lot.
Outrageous.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, when zoning was first applied, as we've learned, it was art rather than science, and, you know, multiple districts were applied to individual parcels back then, but then you also have on top of that all the subdivisions and land swaps and all that kind of thing, and you end up with a whole lot of split zone parcels. And they're all over the county, as you can see. There's also varying degrees of splits, so, you know, the example on the left is in Fort Mill. You've got a property that's got AGC and neighborhood commercial on it, and the neighborhood commercial is in the middle, bookended by AGC on other sides. You've got other properties that are really in one district, but might have slivers here and there that are in another district. And our planner has done a really good job of trying to pull out what seems to be GIS layer issues, because, you know, GIS is not exact, it's off in certain places, so adjusting for that, we still have over 1,100 parcels. And even on this example on the right, there's the example I'm pointing out on the top of California Road, but then there's another on the south side of California Road. They've got another piece of RMX 20 in another district there. We also have seen, we had Sandifer Road earlier this year was another example. So here's another one, Old Limestone Road. Seems to be the same strategy here, as they put one district up on the road frontage and another district behind it. Two totally different zoning districts. They both allow residential as the primary, mercifully, but there are substantive differences between the two in terms of farming and not farming. So that indicates when you've got situations like this, that there's potential for more council-initiated rezonings if you're so inclined to resolve it that way for those large areas. But for ones that are really parcel-specific and kind of isolated, they're not part of a larger area problem. Right now in our code, the section in the land development code here says lots created by a combination or recombination of portions of previously platted lots shall not include more than one zoning district. And that's for a good reason, is because when you've got multiple zoning districts on a single parcel, which rules apply? And that becomes a real chore, a real nightmare, especially when we start talking about dimensional standards. Okay, well, this portion of the road needs a 30-foot setback, and this portion of the property needs a 20-foot setback, but it's the same structure covering the same parcel, so that becomes a real problem real quick. So there's a couple of different methods that we've uncovered in other jurisdictions about how to tackle the split zoning problem. And, you know, the first is the default, which we're currently in, is it's unaddressed in code, doesn't really mention it. Well, that really defaults to if you've got a portion of your property that's neighborhood commercial, well, the uses that are allowed in that district can only be on that portion of it, and all the dimensional standards apply to that portion and not a residential portion, and vice versa. So that's where we're at currently, and that's where honestly a lot of jurisdictions are at. They just kind of they leave it unaddressed and deal with the problems as they arise. Or they might not have as many split zone properties as we do. I don't know that answer. Go ahead.
So what do you want us to talk about?
Yeah, and I'll go through the other options here. So some other approaches is you have the more stringent rules would apply. So if you've got multiple districts, you apply the most stringent portions of all the districts. So if you've got one use that's allowed in one district and it's not allowed in the other, the entire parcel is not allowed to use that district for both districts that are on the parcel. So that's the most stringent way to do it. Majority rules would be another approach, is the parcel that has the highest percentage of the land area in that parcel would govern the entire parcel. So that's, the vast majority of these are, I think 2/3 of them, just about, maybe 60% are, 80% or more of the property is in a single district, and there's a smaller portion that's in a smaller
That's
district.
what we usually do, don't we? In Georgia?
You're talking about when rezonings
somebody
come up?
comes up?
Yeah. And so this is trying to get out of rezoning those properties altogether. So, applying a standard rule set based on a scenario so that they don't have to rezone. So we would be in tandem with, if we decide to go with, approach 2, 3, or 4, in tandem with that, eliminating or modifying the existing language at the top. So that folks could combine property, as long as we know what the rules are going to be for that property. It should be fairly straightforward, so we wouldn't need that precise language. So the majority rules, fairly straightforward, and that's also helpful for when you've got more than 2 districts, because some have, believe it or not, 3 or 4 or 5 districts on one piece of property. So if you have one that's a plurality of the land, the entire parcel would be governed by that. So, some folks might have property where the downside of that approach is you might have some folks that are expecting to be able to do some things on a portion, but if you allow one to control, it might not. So then they would come in and say, okay, we actually want to do this. So they might subdivide, and they might create its own parcel out of that, or they might rezone the whole thing, whatever their approach might be. The last approach would be ratio rules. So I gave the example, I've seen 80%, where if the parcel is majority of it is 80% or more is in a single district, you treat the whole parcel as if it's in that district, regardless of what other districts are on it. But if it doesn't reach that threshold, then you treat the individual sections separately. So you revert back to number one. So those are the different approaches that you might ask us to come back with. Some text language. We could prepare some language for all three, but that might get a little bit long to do that. But these are the separate approaches to come at it, and they range from being really strict to a little more loose.
Those are the two I
Yeah,
like the
3 and
best.
4.
Majority is the easiest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really 3 is the one that I can remember us talking more about, so.
Now, just with the law of unintended consequences, even if you went with number 3 or 4, you know, a lot of people don't pay attention to what their zoning district is, especially if they're in a semi-rural or rural area. Some do. My recollection is back in Georgia, they virtually strip zone a corridor down a major highway for highway commercial. Most of it was undeveloped, but we ran into these situations when development began to occur. The majority rule ended up being the easiest with the least complaints. Of course, you know, you may have a different context or construct here with folks, but my own personal opinion is I like the majority rule. It's just easier and cleaner, typically. Michael may differ, but
that works. How many would have are likely to have multiple uses? I think you mentioned that during on number 3 when you were kind of explaining it. I mean, how many are we going to run into that might occur, that they have, I don't know, something commercial in the front and something not commercial in the back, but whatever the back one is would overrule the front one or something like that?
That would be a major investigative effort to try to figure that out. It's easy enough to do the map part of it, to see where the districts are. Harder to determine, you know.
But y'all haven't have y'all run across very many of them? Like,
we do see some. They are, you know, very few and far between where there's truly 2 uses on it. You know, most of them, I would wager a guess, are probably, you know, like the example on Stone Road and California Road. There's, you know, they probably have just the one use and just the one building, but happen to have multiple districts on them. But some of them, I don't know exactly what the logic was for the AGC and NC split there, but maybe there was a store there and they wanted to use the rest of the property for agricultural purposes. Maybe that's why. But you might have some that truly have 2 uses on it. But in that case, they'd be protected as a non-conforming use and allowed to continue on.
if I'm not mistaken, aren't you cleaning one up at the next council meeting like that? There's a little funny triangular piece.
Yeah, and you know, I think we ran the numbers, something like 1/3 of the rezonings involve split zoning, so you wouldn't eliminate folks looking to rezone because of a split zoning issue, even with the majority rules, as clean cut as that is. Whatever the majority is might not be what they want to do at the end of the day, so they would come back and get that resolved. You'd still have some of those, but the majority of the ones that, you know, we had one that just had used to be a York County pump station. It was a very small parcel, and you had to rezone that, so you wouldn't have to do that under a change like this.
May I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you go to the next slide, please, Jonathan? On those examples, I guess, look at that large swath of land on the right side. There, I'm just presuming RSF 40 has more intense uses than the back agricultural use. So that owner wants to do something that's contrary to AGC but consistent with RSF 40. would they come in for a rezoning at that point?
So it would depend on the route that we go. So if you're saying that big, large parcel that goes to the top and it's majority AGC,
Yes.
so we treat the district as AGC, and so they would be able to have the farming operations all the way up to the road, and they can have residential in both districts, so that wouldn't be a problem. But if someone came in and they wanted to, say, on the street frontage of Old Limestone Road, if they wanted to come in and, if they subdivided it out, that would be different, but,
Yes, but limited to the split as presented.
yes.
Right,
Okay,
but
thank you.
I remember when we was fooling with Santa Fe
That's
Road,
right.
you know,
Mhm.
and they did that because they just wanted to keep trailers,
That's right.
but then they come back to bite them.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Okay, so do I have a motion? Go to the,
I
There
make
you
a
go.
motion that we, that staff bring back, some wording for majority rules. That's not-
3 and 4.
You want 3 and 4, or you just want 3?
They pretty well,
I mean, they're gonna be, it's
they
gonna be
kinda
very-
dictate each other though.
they're gonna be about the same.
Yeah, they
Well-
dictate each other.
I think ratio, you might wanna take a little bit of care with that. I mean, what's the number gonna be?
Right.
You know, I mean, cause
yeah, there you
Fif-
go.
51% may mean a lot
Yeah,
to somebody,
that
and not so
is
much
gonna
to
be
somebody
tricky.
else.
Yeah,
Or 80 or 90.
yeah.
That's why I kinda did the shout out on majority rule,
I
because
think majority, I think 3.
So what I'm saying is that what I'm saying is, if we get the wording for majority rules, and then we decide we
That's
don't
fine.
like that,
Let's do
we can
that.
change majority to 80%, and it doesn't really change the rest of the text, if we decide that that's a
Okay.
bad
So
idea.
what's your
So-
motion?
Motion for staff to bring back a ordinance revision for majority rules.
So number 3, okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
and I would suggest in the meantime, if you're thinking about ratio in the back of your mind, you might wanna caucus on what you think a happy number is.
Oh, I'm not thinking about it, but if y'all come back and say, well, we looked at this, we really think this is the very best idea. But
Okay.
I do wanna make sure to thank planning staff for looking at all the rezonings that we have and trying to come up with ideas on how to lower that number a little bit.
Mhm.
So I do wanna thank y'all for that.
Okay, last but not least, discussion regarding non-conformities.
All right, I am, got a front heart, y'all know me. I'm pinch hitting for our zoning administrator,
How
Rika
many
Boo,
times do we
tonight.
have to discuss this?
Well, I think this is really very similar to the presentation that was given to y'all, I think back in February, we were talking earlier. There were some code changes that were made in April of this year. And actually at the November 3rd meeting, this topic was referred to y'all. So I guess that's why we're here for discussion,
Yay.
for guidance for us. So in the zoning code, nonconformities lists 4 kinds of nonconformities. I'll go through those here in a minute. And guidelines on how they can be expanded or how they can be maintained. So there's nonconforming lots, nonconforming site improvements, nonconforming structures, and nonconforming uses. With lots, we did make a change on that. The main change, I think it's in the next slide here, but it was to where you could have a nonconforming lot that, say the minimum lot size is 1 acre, and the nonconforming lot is 6/10 of an acre, and they want to buy 1/10 of an acre next door. Well, at the time, they would have had to rezone that. Well, we changed the code to allow them to be able to combine that because it makes the lot more conforming, even though it's still non-conforming. Site improvements, those are really commercial developed sites, non-residential type sites. That's for when a use is non-conforming and they want to expand or add on to the use, then they have to bring the site more conforming. Structures, there's some structures that maybe we met with someone earlier today who had a front porch that was located within the front setback, and they were wanting to enclose that, and there's the residential use, so they're allowed to do that. There was another change that was made from council a few months back. And then uses, whether the use is present before zoning or was in and the zoning code changed and then made the use non-conforming, but it's considered grandfather. because it was in there before the code changed. So this is the non-conforming lot section of the code. That's the section I mentioned earlier, B, where it says existing non-conforming lots may be less non-conforming through lot combination or recombination. Let's see, next, ma'am?
That looks good.
Okay. Site improvements, so again, this is when a non-conforming site improvement shall be brought into compliance. I have a gross floor area ratio that dictates how much of the site has to be brought in compliance. A lot of times, it's really just kind of sprucing up the landscaping on an older site that hasn't had any landscaping or any plantings done on it or anything for quite some time. That's probably what we see the majority of with this one. And then structures, generally, like I said, structures can't be enlarged or altered unless, they've been destroyed by natural causes, a hurricane, a flood, or something like that. Or the changes are required by building code, or the residential accessory structures are within the original footprint. See, additional commercial buildings shall comply with the design standards. So if you have an older commercial building and you're going to add on to the side of it, then the new side of it has to meet the new design guidelines within the code. And then non-conforming structures in riparian buffers. That includes the Lake Wiley buffer. Those are allowed to be repaired or maintained. And the principal structure may be demolished and a new one built within the original footprint. That also allows an expansion of that structure if it is away from the riparian buffer or away from the lake. And you can extend a deck into the riparian buffer up to 25%. So non-conforming uses under C here for residential uses and non-residential uses. This is the newer section of the code that was passed in April. A non-conforming single-family residence may be physically expanded or enlarged, and a residential accessory use or structures may be added to the lot, provided there is no increase in the number of dwelling units and required setbacks are met. And then non-residential uses. A non-conforming use of an existing building may be expanded internally into other portions of the building, or a non-conforming non-residential use may be physically expanded or enlarged, and accessory uses or structures related to the non-conforming use may be added to the lot, providing that the area of gross floor area, of the use is not increased by more than 10%, and the required setbacks are met. And then they can also have a building board zone of appeals. Board of Zoning Appeals, goodness gracious, may consider a special exception request for expansions or enlargements.
Why did I have to rezone? I just had one council meeting back, remember fellow was moving the trailer, but y'all said it didn't fit in the footprint because they wanted to put a double wide.
Yeah, for that one, they replaced the single wide with the double wide. So, there's a world in which we could maybe loosen up the language in C1 a little bit to accommodate that situation. That might be a change that you consider.
Yeah, because everybody was unbelieving on that. You remember even Bump said something about, why are we having to make this man rezone just to change trails?
Well, so
They were trying to also, create feasible property as well as part of that to subdivide it. So that was the reason for the rezone.
Well, see, that man told me he would rather not have to touch it, didn't come.
Okay.
He just said that he thought he had to so his son could get a double wide, but you both know now, some trailers in double wide or single, some single wides have as much square footage as double wide. May look different sitting on the land, but.
So that's something we could certainly make more liberal here and add that there. That's gonna be on third reading, I think, at your next meeting, so that situation will be done before, anything can be done text-wise here,
Right.
but for future situations, yeah, that can be changed.
Because that can be an issue.
Mhm.
So this residential usage, so we have an issue over in, I think, Heron Cove in Lake Wiley. So it was a subdivision, subdivided, it was built in 2006, when UD still allowed residential. Half the subdivision or 2/3 of the subdivision got built out, and then I guess it was a council-initiated rezoning to get all those back into conforming, but somehow part of them were forgotten or
It was-
left out or
It was
something.
optional. It was.
Oh, it was
It was
optional.
optional. Each lot owner had their
So that's
choice
why
to
there's
rezone that.
all these sporadic ones in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we have a subdivision that was designed, all intents and purposes are to build houses on it and have houses, but now the last lot hasn't been built, needs to be built, and now it's gotta go through rezoning to be built. Is there situations like that out there where somebody's going to go through the whole 3-month process, and can that be fixed when all paperwork, all documentation says this was gonna be used for residential, and then it got not residential?
Right. Yeah, and I think that would be, if that's something that you want us to explore, is finding neighborhoods out there that are either entirely or a mix of UD, and bring them forward for you to consider council-initiated rezonings. That's certainly the best way
But
to
can we
solve
fix,
it.
so it's better to do that than to?
Yeah, they're already allowed to, well, so you're talking vacant though, right?
Yeah,
Right.
that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
So if it's vacant, there's no non-conforming use there, it just wouldn't be permitted. So, yeah, the solution there would to be to either do one-off rezonings as applications come in, or to
Mhm.
find those neighborhoods and kind of do it.
But we
Does
couldn't.
that make that property useless?
No. No, so if the property is UD, they're allowed to do all the uses that are allowed in UD currently, which include a lot of manufacturing uses. They just can't do residential of any kind.
Essentially, they just have to go through the process. We don't charge for rezoning from UD.
I did see
It's
that.
It's just, they're having to go through the formal process.
Right. And it delayed them about 4 months.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, and if we were to do something like Heron's Cove, I think there may be a rezoning that will be coming before y'all, in another month or two, where it's an older subdivision off of, Porter Road outside Rock Hill, near the quarry, that some of those, it's a similar situation, where there's some UD properties in there that didn't get rezoned, it's a vacant property. A gentleman bought it, an investor bought it and wants to put a spec house on it.
Okay.
All right, so I guess there's not an easy way to fix that.
But I would like to look into that.
Knock our heads together and see.
And the only other way would be to reintroduce residential uses to UD, but I don't think you want to go down that road.
But I would like to
Not
look,
today.
I would like to look into that that deal that happened with the trailer deal. I don't know how we'd motion that, but
Yeah, you could motion to revisit expansion of non-conforming residential uses to allow for larger replacements of manufactured homes.
yeah.
I think that would.
Cause I mean, that wouldn't be much different than that Oh So Close that we did, would it?
Well, it's literally doubling in size, so the Oh So Close, we're limited to 10%.
They could have just
Good.
added onto the side of the trailer. I don't know what the trailer looked like. I think it was in bad shape, but
Just change
I
the
just
word
don't like-
residence to
yeah.
use, and non-conforming single-family use, maybe. Would that address it?
Yeah, I mean, the change, whatever,
Well, I mean,
we
as a
come up
family-
with would be very small.
Right, as the family grows, I mean, if you got a Chihuahua forever and then you decide to buy a Saint Bernard doghouse, needs to get a little
yeah,
bigger.
but it allows for enlarging it and expanding it. You
Just
just
replacement.
couldn't replace it.
Can you imagine him going through
I know, and it really is I've kind of come up with something, not something that wouldn't get abused majorly in the future.
Right.
So, we got a motion?
Oh, I don't know, were you done with your presentation?
Oh, yeah,
We
I'm
stopped
done.
it
No, we're just,
this way.
this is what we're looking for, I guess, some discussion and feedback about some
All right,
guidance.
what's the proper way to make that motion then, so that you'll understand it and I will too?
John, I just wrote what you said.
Okay, Karen's got it.
Read the motion out, Karen, read the motion out.
Motion to revisit expansion of non-conforming residential uses to allow for larger replacements of manufactured homes.
Second.
How about first?
I don't have a second to Karen's
Is that your-
motion.
Is that your motion? Tommy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then even repeating it again.
Second.
Second,
Yeah.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
What about the other 3 slides? Do we need
Yeah,
motions on those
Anything else
also?
that you would like us to change?
Well, I thought one of them said,
Yeah.
That's a current, that was
that's
a
Oh.
code,
already.
yeah, that was a code amendment that passed in April
Okay.
of this year.
So
And
was
we've had some lots where that's been effective and it's avoided rezonings and variance requests.
That's my 10% deal.
Well,
Okay.
were there any other than what we just, was there anything else we needed? What brought this forward?
Hmm? No.
What were we addressing? Just going over in general?
I think the biggest thing
I mean, I
is,
didn't have an issue with that,
is
so I
the
don't
fact
know.
that we got so many of them and it's becoming a problem.
It might have been that rezoning that precipitated, it was the
Yeah.
same meeting, the first reading. So
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause I brought that forth then, didn't
Mhm.
I? Yeah.
So, do we have anything for executive session?
But we do wanna make sure y'all don't have any other ideas for the code, because we're always gonna say,
Everybody,
hey, if y'all
please.
are frustrated, this is the place to change it, it's the code.
I don't have any
Okay.
complaints with
It's non-
non-conforming.
Okay.
I make a motion that it's $100,000 fee just come into York County this week.
We tried that, nobody wants to do that either.
Okay,
I'm very
so-
thankful.
Okay, so y'all are good, we're
We're
good.
good.
We're
Okay,
good, we're
So
good.
anything for executive session?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so do I have a,
Motion to adjourn.
adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.